What's up, wall fans, common sensors, podcast consumers? Welcome to the video feed for episode 79 of Common Sense Sundays with Go Tell It to the Wall, hosted by me, of course, your absolute favorite podcast host, the one and only Sean O'Rourke. For those of you watching the video feed, if your kids are around, stop. This week is not the week, and we're really not made for kids, but this week is definitely not the week to have your kids around while you're listening or watching. So please, if you're doing that, stop. Because we're going to get into it a little bit this week for obvious reasons, and I'm sure the F-bombs will be flying. So all that being said, let's get right into episode 79.
Who, 1, 2, 3, go tell it to the wall. Tell it to the wall. Go tell it to the wall. Tell it to the wall.
All right, wall fans, common sensors, podcast consumers, welcome to episode 79 of Common Sense Sundays with Go Tell It to the Wall, hosted by me, your absolute favorite podcast host, the one and only Sean O'Rourke. And before we get into our I can't even speak correctly this week, our usual social plugs that we always kick things off with, I want to say, and I said this at the top of the video feed, but for those of you that are listening and not seeing the video feed intro, if your kids are around, stop this episode. Just stop it right now. Guarantee this one's not going to be appropriate for kids. We're really not a kids episode, like podcast. To begin with, sometimes they're a little better than others. This is going to be one of those where the F-bombs, I'm sure, will be flying. I kind of go off the wall, for lack of a better phrase there, and I don't know how many are coming, but I guarantee they're coming because we're going to call out a lot of ridiculousness that's been going on over the past week, and y'all know what that's going to be about. But before we get into all that madness, I'm also going to try to break it up. I'm going to do my best to get some positive stuff in there. We're probably going to go a little short this week. I'm going to give as much time as I can, and then I am going to understandably go spend some more time with my wife and kid. So before we get into all that madness, we always kick things off with our social plugs. You can keep up with us on multiple platforms. One of those would be facebook.com/GoTellItToTheWall. That's right, facebook.com/GoTellItToTheWall. Our official Facebook page. Make sure you like that page and follow and get all kinds of updates on a weekly basis. At least once a week there's an update going through there. And of course our YouTube channel, youtube.com/GoTellItToTheWall. Head over to YouTube, subscribe to our channel. You're going to find all of the video feeds as well as our Go Tell It to the Brewery beer reviews, our parenting playlists, our mental health playlists, all that good stuff right there on YouTube. So if you're a YouTube user, make sure you subscribe and check out all those videos at youtube.com/GoTellItToTheWall. And of course, my own personal Instagram account, which is at SoCalSean, SoCalSean, at SoCalSean, right there on the Instagram. Follow me on there if you're an Instagram user. Most importantly, all-encompassing of those things, and I just did some updates the other day. Finally, we were long overdue for some updates, would be SeanO'RourkeLive.com. Bookmark that one, check back often. You're going to find links to those platforms I just mentioned, as well as exclusive content that's not available on social platforms, as well as a link to our Patreon campaign. Support us if you have the means to do so and you see fit to do it. Please, please, please do that. And of course, if you don't want to get onto Patreon, you can support us by picking up some Common Sense Go Tell It to the Wall merch on our merch website, which links directly from the website. And speaking of merch, not on the website, we got a brand new sticker, new design, new sticker that is coming your way. Should have them in my hands hopefully by the next episode, but if not, soon. They're coming. They're literally in production right now, but those don't go on the merch website. That's just stuff that's ordered separately from the merch website. So you're gonna have to look forward to finding me out somewhere, or someone else that is a friend of Go Tell It to the Wall to pick up one of those stickers when they do come in. All right. Like I said, it's going to be a little bit of a rough episode today. Might cut it a little short. Unless you've been living under a rock, you know what I'm talking about and what we're going to heavily get into today, unfortunately. This is stuff we have breached many times before, and I'm going to try to break it up with other stuff, but I can't ignore this, and it's something that is extremely personal to me and should be to all of you, but especially as a parent, it's going to be something extremely personal. So a lot of stuff's going to be flying around this week, but let's get into some digital trends and hopefully break that up a little bit. Hashtag National Hamburger Day. That's right. That is not today. It was actually yesterday, but I want to mention it because a hamburger is one of my absolute favorite foods. I did not have a hamburger yesterday. That's the funny thing is I always miss these days by like a day. My wife and I had Had hamburgers for dinner on Friday while my daughter was at her Girl Scout meeting. And then the next day I was like, oh, we should have saved the hamburgers for today. We just made them at home. So I always seem to miss those by like a day. It's never failed. National Pizza Day. Like I had pizza yesterday. That's just how it works. But for those of you that are hamburger fans, and of course it was this weekend because it's Memorial Day weekend, you can celebrate any time. And I'm sure people are eating hamburgers today, barbecuing. I know I got some friends out there barbecuing and such. I'm going to go do that after I finish up in here for the day. So get your barbecue on. You know, it's the time. The weather's getting nicer. Weirdly, the weather was not that nice in Southern California yesterday, but it has turned back around to sun and 70s today. All right, hashtag Trump is a laughingstock. There was yet another Trump rally this weekend. He had also an appearance that was utterly ridiculous, and we're going to get into a lot of that. And of course, this is probably spawned from both of those events happening over the weekend. This hashtag can really be used any day, but we're going to talk about why that one's floating around right now as much as it can just be used on a regular basis. Because the guy is a laughingstock. I can't believe we're still dealing with this egomaniacal son of a bitch after he told us he was going to basically disappear. So still waiting for that to happen, Orange Menace. But of course that one is trending. And of course, hashtag Uvalde shooting. Unless you've been living under a rock. I'm not laughing because it's funny. It's just there's no way you haven't heard about this. We had yet another school shooting, mass school shooting, happen this week in Texas. In Texas, which is, and Uvalde is a small town in Texas near San Antonio. That would be the nearest large city that really anyone would recognize. Same here. It's like that any state. A few cities, you don't know all the small cities unless something like this happens, like a school shooting, which we have unfortunately had in Uvalde. An AR-15 yet again. I've been talking about this since the beginning of Go Tell It to the Wall. Nobody needs these kinds of weapons. These are weapons that are literally just designed to kill people. To kill people. You're not hunting with these fucking guns. No civilian should own one of these guns. And I'm going to get the hate mail every time because I'm going to talk about how ridiculous it is and how common sense dictates that we shouldn't be putting these guns in the hands of anybody. Maybe the military. But at the military, they have a locked armory. They're not. I think there's a misconception that people in the military are like sleeping with a giant gun next to their bed while they're in the No, the guns are given to them when they need to go use them. Police, okay, maybe each police station needs one crazy big gun just in case something crazy happens, and that bad boy again stays locked up. Ain't nobody just grabbing it and using it on a daily basis. No civilian needs these kind of guns. But here we are, yet again, another AR-15 being used to mass murder people. It's a murder weapon. And the crazy thing is, for those of you that didn't hear, the kid was 18 years old. He bought 2 AR-15s on his 18th birthday and walked right out with them. Because in Texas, you don't have crazy background checks. You don't have waiting periods and all these kinds of things. Bought hundreds of rounds of ammo. It's like, what? Do you wonder why this kid is buying a bunch of ammo? Is he going hunting? How many deer do you think he's trying to kill with hundreds of rounds of ammo and a gun that is literally designed to kill people? And we're going to unpack all of this throughout the episode. And I apologize in advance for the F-bombs that will be flying. And I apologize that we're not going to have as much humor as we usually do, but we got to talk about this from a common sense standpoint. And I'm so sick and tired of having to do this over and over and over again. We've been doing this since the very beginning of Go Tell It to the Wall. It's been happening since before then. I've said it before. I was in high school during Columbine. We had shootings before Columbine, but that really changed a lot. It really did. And we've seen it just escalate in the 25 years since that occurred. And the other ridiculous thing that was happening on social media, you might have seen this, and if you were somebody sharing it, I encourage you to go here. Always, we fact check. Don't share things before you fact check. The day of the shooting, there were a couple photos floating around the social platforms of a transgender individual, a young individual, transgender person, who looked like the Uvalde shooter, the school shooter there. So people, of course, circulated this and said, oh, look, we have a trans person. Because they're trans, this is what brought out the violence in them. Here's the thing. A quick Google search is going to show you that wasn't the same person. That person didn't even live in Texas. And this was going crazy on Reddit. And this poor person who has nothing to do with anything that happened in Uvalde had to come out and say, yo, here is a picture of me. I'm literally not in Texas and I'm not dead because the gunman is dead. But people run with these things. And of course you have the right, the GOP, and all these conservatives who then want to run with it and blame it on trans youth, on quote-unquote woke culture. Give me a break with that. I can't do it anymore. And then it gets even more ridiculous because we were talking about high-profile people sharing these pictures. And then our good friend Candy Owens over there, good Lord. It's amazing to me how people can still have a platform for how dumb and how hateful they are. And Candace Owens is one of those. And this week, she really just showed her true colors. And the funny thing is, she came out and tweeted something about the shooter being trans. And I'm going to get back to more in detail what that was. And then what happened was she got some backlash because people started realizing this wasn't the person. You're sharing these photos. And she came out and said, I did not share the photo of the individual. No, what you did was much worse. Sharing the photo was bad enough without fact-checking. But if you think that's the case, and you're just sharing it to say, oh, look, that's much, much milder than what Candace Owens did. What Candace Owens did is said that LGBTQ and trans kids are creating violence in this country. How? Give me one example there, Candy. I'm pretty sure it's all these conservative and Trump followers that are doing a lot of this stuff. And even if it's not, I don't see the correlation between the LGBTQ community, or the trans community specifically in this case, and gun violence. Except, of course, when it's perpetrated onto that community. Trans kids are killers. That's what she said. She tweeted it. It's probably maybe been deleted, but she tweeted it. I can't fathom how anybody can support a hateful, ignorant human being like that, like any of them. But here we are. We live in this kind of world where we do that. And then, of course, the Orange Menace. This is one of the reasons why that hashtag was going crazy. Trump is a laughingstock. And we'll get into more detail of where this came from. But he had a public speaking event like 2 days after the shooting in Texas at a certain convention that we're going to talk about. And what did he do? Inappropriately read the names of all the students, all 19 students who were killed, read off their names with a weird bell toll after it. Now, I'm not a huge fan of the movies, but it very much reminded me of Hunger Games and the bell that would toll when a child was killed. Now, that is fiction, not reality. However, here we have people that thought that was a good idea to do this at a convention for guns. And what did the Orange Menace do as soon as he was done reading off the names of the kids? He did his stupid little arm shake dance, which is 1,000 times worse than anything Carlton ever did. He read these names off all solemnly, like he's doing a good thing, and then fucking dances. One of these things is not like the other. Not too hard to figure that out. And people are cheering him on and calling for all this other bullshit instead of the obvious, which we're also going to get into as the episode goes on. Now, this one, I got to give a good on you to Cousin Beto down there. Again, Beto's not actually my cousin. It's a joke because we have the same last name. So what he did was, of course, he was on the ground in Uvalde. And what he did was that absolute maniac down there, Abbott, the governor of Texas, is holding a press conference in Uvalde. And what does Beto do? He goes and interrupts the press conference and points out that this is on Abbott and people like Abbott. And until they do something, this is never going to end. So this is all just lip service. Well, the couple officials that were sitting on the stage there for the press conference, of course, they start calling him names, get him kicked out of there. The rage on these ridiculous white men that are sitting there for this press conference was 1,000 times more intense than the rage that they had about the actual shooter. It goes to show you what they actually care about. They don't care about kids. They don't care about kids dying. What they care about is lining their pockets and retaining power. There's no such thing as a good politician, but at least some of them are doing something to incur some kind of change and keep our children safe. And Beto is one of those people. And then, of course, people got, oh, what a publicity stunt and all this other stuff. Are you fucking kidding me? Publicity stunt? Publicity stunt is letting this continue to happen, taking money from the NRA, going to speak at NRA conventions, and not giving a shit about kids dying in your state. That's grabbing for attention. And that's what's going on down there. And in fact, we are seeing stories. Who knows if they've been corroborated. But as far as Abbott goes, he's not doing too well right now. Now, I'm sure all of the people that worship at the foot of Orange Menace and Ted Cruz and all these other fucking idiots like the NRA people, yeah, they're loving it. But you know what happened? Abbott tried to meet with the family of one of the children that was killed in Uvalde, Texas. They said no. They wanted them, according to the story, now I don't know if this has been independently fact-checked, according to the story, he wanted his family to go on with a press conference with him and state that gun safety was not the issue and why the kids were killed. They refused to do that, and apparently they were told, don't break this story, don't tell anyone about this, you being approached by somebody from Abbott's camp about doing this. And they came out and spoke about it. The other thing is, sure, the asshole white dude sitting on the stage for the press conference in this town that is 89% Hispanic. 89%. Bunch of fat white dudes sitting at a table. And I don't care about their weight. It's just very boss hog here. Look up that reference if you're too young to understand what I'm talking about. And what happened was Beto, he goes down there, and he actually did meet with families. Some of the families of the children wanted to meet with Beto. They did not want to meet with Abbott. So sure, you could say, oh, no, what's he doing with this publicity stunt? Publicity stunt my ass. He's going and meeting with the families, and they want to meet with him. Not the supposed governor of Texas who's not doing a damn thing. For those of you not aware, Abbott recently made it so that you don't need a permit to carry guns. It's literally the Wild West down there in Texas. People walking around with fucking guns. Blew my mind when I drove through Texas a year ago. It's like, really? Everybody's got a gun and carrying it around. Why? You know, the whole good guy with a gun thing, give me a break. I don't want to hear that. Because there's no such thing as a good guy with a gun. And in fact, I live in Los Angeles. I am well aware that there are probably people walking around my neighborhood right now with a gun. I am much less afraid of them than the gun nuts down there in Texas buying hundreds of rounds of ammo, AR-15s, and stuff like that. That's much more terrifying to me. And maybe it's not to you. You need to question why it's not. Look at the statistics. It's pretty easy. All right, let's talk about some COVID updates. I just got a couple things this week. Yeah, we're still doing COVID stuff 2.5 years later. Good Lord. More and more friends. I'm just daily. There's at least one person that I know personally, almost daily, that is coming down with a positive COVID test. We're still here. We are still here, Wall fans. Don't get rid of those masks. Keep them handy. And in fact, Mike Breen, I'm going to talk about sports for a second, but because relating to COVID, Mike Breen, who is an ESPN announcer, he's a for the NBA for basketball. He actually just came down with a positive test, and he's not going to be able to call Game 7 tonight between the Boston Celtics and the Miami Heat. The interesting thing is, which I found, he sits next to two other people for all of these games, and they've been doing these games. This is Game 7. He's doing games before this series, and he sits next to two other guys, and neither of them had a positive test. So you never know, but keep those masks around. That's the only smart thing to do. And here's the interesting statistic. And you can look this one up if you want. And it's a telling statistic to an extent, and I will caveat it with one thing. Last year, around Memorial Day, if you remember, cases were going down. I felt good about driving across the country. As I was driving across the country, things were looking up. Cases were down. Everyone was a little more positive about coming to the end of it. Well, this Memorial Day weekend compared to last year's Memorial Day weekend, cases in the United States are 5 times higher. 5. Not doubled, tripled, quadrupled. 5 times higher than they were a year ago. Now, I'll caveat that with, we've had these surges before. It's not like we've been that low until this Memorial Day and suddenly we got high. No, we've had the variants and stuff. So there have been other surges, But that should give you a pretty good idea of the fact that we are not actually completely out of this yet. You need to still use your own judgment and use due diligence to keep yourself safe. Keep yourself and your family safe. That's the important thing. We're still dealing with it. Yeah, you could do things outside. My wife and kid are out at the park right now, but be smart about it. You know, that's the important thing. All right, I'm so tired of talking about COVID. Everyone's tired of talking about COVID. I'm certain of it, but it's still here. Just because you're tired, again, I've been saying this for 2 years. Just because you're tired of it, don't mean it's gone. It's still here. And in fact, I will tell you, that was the other interesting thing is, remember I recapped Circle Jerks and Bouncing Souls, that show out at the Glass House like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. Apparently a bunch of people there came down with COVID from that show. So I dodged a bullet, fortunately for me, but many others got it from being at that show. It's still spreading. It's still out there. We still have bands coming down with it. All kinds of other. And in fact, Governor Newsom, Governor of California, has a positive case right now. It's utter madness. Absolutely. All right, let's talk some mental health. I am not equipped this week. I'm just too overcome with anger and grief. I switch between the two. And for those of you that have been longtime listeners, like I said at the top of this episode, we've been talking about school shootings, mass shootings, since before this podcast existed. And there was a time where I would talk about, because this podcast started not long before my daughter was born. And I talked about how terrified I was, and now am, to send my child to school because of what we deal with on what's now a weekly fucking basis. It's terrifying. So I feel for all of you parents out there. It's hell on your mental health. It's hell on your mental health. Just if you're a moral person, then you add the fact that you have to take your kid to school, and you wonder if you're going to be able to pick your kid up at the end of the day. It's terrifying. Utterly terrifying. So I'm just not equipped this week. But I want to give you a couple of just quick tips. Try not to get sucked in. Here's the thing. And this is as much, my wife does not deal with mental illness the way I do, but she sometimes she'll get sucked into the bad news cycle. And everybody does. Everybody does it. I do it. But I have to remind her, like, you know what? Put the phone down. Stop looking at the news for a little while. There's nothing new that's come. It's just frustrating you. And we all need to consider that, because you can do what they call doom scrolling. And of course, and I've said this before, there's a balance between being informed and putting yourself in a dark place because you're too informed, for lack of a better word. And that's really what it is. Sometimes you just have to detach from the madness. Because, especially if you deal with mental health problems or a mental illness, being incapacitated by your own mental issues is not going to help you moving forward, you personally, or you helping those around you. So try to balance those things. Be informed, but don't let it completely drag you down. And then as you're doing that, there's a certain thing called self-medicating. And really everybody does it. You know, it's been almost glorified by Hollywood. You know, you see the person go into the bar, I've broke up with my significant other, or, you know, whatever it is, I got laid off today, I'll leave the bottle. You know, they get super drunk. That's self-medicating. And for those that have mental health issues or mental illness, sometimes you find yourself self-medicating. I'm not endorsing it. I will admit that I've been guilty of it myself. But the reason I bring this up is if you are going to do that, do it with caution, because there's absolutely a line. And again, you don't want to be such a mess that you can't help those around you. Use common sense. So I'm not saying you should self-medicate. I'm not saying you shouldn't self-medicate. I've been guilty of it myself. Just be careful when you're doing these things. Especially if you're on certain medications and you shouldn't be drinking or doing other things, you know. Just be smart. All right, some positive news. Let's talk about some quick positive news. I've been talking about this for a couple weeks now. I can't believe we're still talking about it, but it's finally over. The long national nightmare of the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial is finally over. The trial's over. I think the jury has it or something. This is still something I don't care about, but I did get it. This is the ridiculous thing. I got a breaking news notification from multiple outlets. Like I think AP did it and KTLA and whatever. I get breaking news notifications from various news outlets. I want to say it was Friday. Well, the Depp Heard trial now goes to jury, and I'm like, why is this fucking breaking news? Why do I care about this? Look, and in fact, I did care a little because I was like, sweet. I don't need these. I'm not going to get YouTube notifications. And like every single YouTube notification is like, can you believe how Amber Heard got owned by this lawyer or whatever else? Or this witness was just great. I don't care. This is not my life. It's ridiculous. So thank God, again, that long national nightmare is finally over. And that's my positive news for this week because I'm sick of hearing about Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. I'm just sick of it. Honestly, I didn't even know who the hell Amber Heard was until this whole Johnny Depp stuff started. Now, I know who Johnny Depp is. I've known for a very long time, obviously. But I didn't even know who the hell Amber Heard was. I couldn't name us. Actually, I can name one movie, and only because that's been popping up in social feeds, is I guess she was in Aquaman. But I imagine she's been in something else, too. And I couldn't name a movie with, you couldn't pay me to name another movie. I would try. I wouldn't know. Aquaman's the only one I know. And that's because they're trying to get her kicked off of Aquaman 2 or some, I don't know. It's ridiculous, man. All right, let's talk some parenting. I talked about it. It's been a rough week as a parent. Now, I am fortunate that the school district where my child goes to school is very diligent in handling any kinds of threats. They're very diligent with how the school is locked down. I can't imagine the grief that some of these parents are going through. Though I will say, I don't even want to call it karma, but these are things there's always the saying of you're against it until it happens to you. And we had an instance down there in Uvalde. A guy had posted about, screw your gun-free zones and all this other stuff and yay guns and whatever else and stuff like this. Guy lost his kid in the school shooting. I think about that all the time. And that's the funny thing is sometimes I go to my kid's school and I'll be wearing a shirt that isn't offensive, but could possibly be deemed as offensive. I'm talking like skeletons, And I'm purposeful because those of you that are Descendants fans, I actually try not to wear like Descendants stuff because a lot of my Descendants stuff says everything sucks. I don't want the kids reading that and being like, everything sucks. It's, it's an album name. For those of you that don't know the Descendants, it's the name of an album. My favorite album of theirs. But, wearing a Rancid shirt with a skeleton or something like that. My Drown's Feminist Flamethrower shirt. I don't find those offensive. But I do question it. I'm like, is somebody at the school going to be offended by this? And then I see the parent at my daughter's school who likes to wear the All Guns Matter shirt. And I don't question any of my shirts that I wear after seeing that. And I get that reminder every now and then. And I see that same damn shirt, him wearing it to school. I don't want to say you reap what you sow, but we need to consider these things. That is much more offensive to me than a shirt that says everything sucks or anything like that. Or wear a mask, you dumb shit. That's my Zombie Teeth shirt's coming back. I'm wearing a Zombie Teeth design today. Not a Zombie Teeth shirt. It's Sidewalk Project, but it is a Zombie Teeth design by the very talented Paul Smith, but done for the Sidewalk Project. So it's actually a Sidewalk Project shirt, but Zombie Teeth art. And you want to talk more about bad parenting. This is a story. This is actually from April, but it just recently came to light. We had a mother who I'm going to assume single mother, it sounds like, who brought her child to T-Rex Cafe out there in Disney Springs. That's part of, the Disney resort down there in Orlando. What happened was she decided to have a couple of double Grey Goose vodka martinis or something like that. Doubles. She had a couple of those. She left her kid in the restaurant to go back to her car and retrieve her credit card. Because that's something you do. You say, oh, hey, waiter server, can you please watch my child? Bartender, I'm going to leave my... Not something you want to do. Disney property or not. She comes back, leaves again to go to her car, and disappears. Well, we find out after that she was picked up by an ambulance because she was so drunk that she passed out and could not even walk. And she was transported by ambulance to a hospital while her child was essentially abandoned at T-Rex Cafe. And on top of that, they found receipts in her Hip pack. Please, for the love of God, Americans, it's a hip pack. Stop using the other name. I don't use that name on this podcast. We got a lot of listeners in the UK. It is not the other one. It's a hip pack, but I digress. She had 5 receipts for 5 other double Grey Goose vodka drinks. I'd be passed out too, but that's not something you do when you're out with your child. That's not something you should do anyway. You know, but maybe you're having like a bachelor party or something. You had a little too many, but your kid's not around. It's amazing to me how we can trust a lot of parents. And some people just shouldn't be parents. And I'm not saying this lady shouldn't be a parent, but I'm saying let's just do better as parents. You know, set a better example for your kids, and definitely don't leave your child at a restaurant. Like, even if you're not drunk, don't leave your child at a restaurant. Just keep an eye on your kid. That's like the main thing with being a parent, is keep an eye on your kid and keep them safe. Failing on both those right there, lady. All right, it is summertime, and pool time is coming. So this is going to be, with my kid finishing up pre-kindergarten, this is going to be her first summer like out of school, which is interesting. And we ate up a lot of last summer with a 3.5-week road trip. So my wife and I are in this fun thing of trying to organize stuff for the kid to do all summer. And let me tell you, like summer camps, even day camps and stuff like that, those fill up quick. So like next year, we're going to start looking at these things in January. And I don't want to send her away to camp, but she needs things to keep her busy outside of just having a pool and stuff. In fact, I joked with my wife. I was like, we're going to have common sense daycare here at the house, and I'm just going to have the kids running suicides up and down the side of the house. Get that energy out, kids. I wouldn't actually do that, but that's why that's why I don't run a daycare. Actually, I think I'd be great at a daycare. Just be like, here's a giant pool. I'm going to sit here, and I'm going to watch all of you, and you just go nuts. That's probably not the best thing to do either. But the challenge of keeping kids busy, I feel for you, parents. 'Cause mine's finally hit, up past summers, it was a little easier. Now mine's finally hitting the age of like, oh, God, I need to entertain this child. And then, of course, we threw a dog in with it. And freaking dog. Got that dog groomed this week. Oh, man. He needed it. And it's funny because I take it's tangent hit a little bit, but I take the dog in. And last thing my wife says is, make sure they don't cut. I like his ears. Make sure they don't cut his ears too short. And I was like, all right, I'm going in there to be like, whatever you think's best. So I told him that. I said, and he goes, gonna do the best, but honestly, this dog is quite matted. And he showed me the ears, and I said, all right, cut it off. And that's basically what they did. So the dog's looking a little funny right now, but not terrible, just a little bit funny. But that hair is gonna grow back. That's the amazing thing. But it's crazy. The amount of care that goes to certain dogs. I've talked about how this dog has to have special food and all this other stuff. Well, I talked to the groomer, and he's like, you got to brush this dog at least once or twice a week. And I'm like, what? Like, the dog doesn't shed. And I was like, okay, well, what kind of, did I just use a normal brush? No, you got to use this. It's called a slicker brush. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about here? So I had to get a special brush for the dog, too, and a comb. And I'm just like, you know what? And it wasn't the groomer upselling me, because the groomer was not selling me these things. It's the guy, the guy that's working the counter at the groomer. He wasn't like, oh, here, buy this. He showed me, and in fact was like, this is an $80 version. I'm like, you got to be kidding me right now. He said, you don't need this. We have it, and I was like, okay, well, that makes sense. Still, $20 freaking brush for the dog. It's like having another kid. And it really is. This dog needs to get more used to things, because one of us leaves the house, and he stares out the back. Like, we have a driveway in the back, and he'll stare out the back window while you leave. And then he'll sit there and wait until someone gets home. And then he runs to the door and goes, like, all right, pup, you gotta get a little more used to being alone for a hot minute there. All right, let's talk some common sense. Like I said, we're going to be a little short this week, and I'm okay with that, because I'm just mentally exhausted after this week. It's too much. It's too much. I can't imagine those 19 parents down there. That's utterly crazy. All right. Oh, man. Talking about crazy. I don't know if you've seen this clip. It popped up for me in a couple of the social feeds this week. There was a Lutheran minister down there in Texas. I can't remember exactly what city it was. It wasn't, and it rang a bell to me. So I want to say it was one of those cities like outside of Dallas that is kind of recognizable, like Irving. And don't quote me on that. I don't remember the city. I'm positive it was Texas. And it was a city council meeting. And this Lutheran minister went up there to speak at the city council meeting and rail against the fact that they were having a pride celebration. For those of you not aware, June is LGBTQ Pride Month. And so a lot of cities, they celebrate with a big pride celebration, a big pride parade. I live in Los Angeles, which I don't know in comparison how big it is, but I know the West Hollywood Pride Parade is quite large. I would bet without knowing that it's like top 5 in the country just because of the size. So yeah, it's something we're used to. You see it popping up a lot, and I don't go to the Pride Parade not because I don't want to support, but just because I avoid crowds, and it's very crowded down there at that time. So he decided to stand up there and rail against and say, how can we let them have a pride celebration? And he said them, talking about the LGBTQ community. Then he goes on to quote the Bible and literally state that LGBTQ people should be killed. And you would think, well, hopefully this is just a one-off instance and maybe people were like, you're wrong, that's crazy. No. The entire crowd at the city council meeting was hooting and hollering and clapping, standing ovations. You can see this in the video. Standing ovations for an individual calling for the killing of people simply because they are the way they are. This is the world we live in. And cheers. Cheers. Standing ovation. These are people. Just like you and me. But we still have this hateful rhetoric. And it often comes from conservative religious people like this. But it's not always that. It's not just religion. And you know me, I have no problem with religion until that religion starts to push itself onto other people. And this is a prime example of that. So we need to see less of this. Let's not support these people. And tell them how it is. Put them in their place. Just like that Westboro Baptist Church. Stuff like that shouldn't be happening. Absolutely no excuse for that. There's also no excuse for this next story that I am ashamed to say I'm talking about, but common sense says I just got to mention it real quick. I don't even follow these people, yet it's in my feed, and that's the Kardashians. Well, Travis Barker and one of the Kardashians, Kourtney, or I don't know which one. Who the fuck cares? They got married. Now, Travis Barker's a goddamn Kardashian. It's fine, do you. But keep your Kardashian culture the hell out of my culture that you had already been ruining for a few years now with Machine Gun Kelly and all this other bullshit. Well, this Kardashian, Kourtney or whichever, she came out and I'm not going to tell you exactly what the advice is because despite the fact that I'm throwing around F-bombs this episode, I don't want to talk about something that's really none of my business. She was given advice by her doctor on something that can help her I'm blanking on it. Thyroid. She has like a thyroid condition, I believe it is. It was something involving Travis Barker and something that she should ingest regularly, and it will help with her thyroid. Well, they decided to put this out as a statement to the media. Yeah. That is something that can just go ahead and be left in your own bedroom there, Barker and Kardashian. And of course, this is another example, just like the we drink each other's blood with Machine Gun Kelly and what's-her-face, the actress, can't even think of her name. This is just a grasp at relevance. It's shock. And they're doing that just to keep their names in the media. Don't give them extra airtime. Please stop this. Can we please just stop this? We don't need to know this. That's the bottom line. You're craving attention, that's fine. But news outlets, don't put this in my feed. I don't follow any of these people. Like, why is it in my feed? Absolutely ridiculous. All right, let's talk about this delayed response down there in Uvalde, Texas. It was really crazy as this all unfolded, and you're hearing about the tragedy somewhat in real time, and bits and pieces are coming out. This is how it is anytime there's a big, really any kind of big event, whether it's natural disaster or a violent event. It takes a day or two for everything to come out. Well, for those of you that haven't heard, we did find out that the police response was very much subpar, for lack of a better phrase. And what happened was the police officers arrived at the school, and they spent about an hour until they actually went into the classroom and killed the shooter. And often what's coming out here is they're talking about miscommunication. And the story is they thought there was no threat to the children. They thought he was just barricaded. All this while the children are calling 911 from the classroom and asking, pleading with the 911 operator to send the police in and help them. Here's the thing. We're force-fed. Force-fed. It has been this way probably since long before I was alive, but definitely since I was a kid. Force-fed respect for the police. Serve and protect. The thin blue line. Blue lives matter. Police lives matter. Respect for authority. Hey, you notice that? Serve and protect? I don't see either of those things coming from police officers. Observe and report, maybe? And it's heartbreaking to see these things. Absolutely heartbreaking. Because on top of them not going in, parents are outside pleading with the police officers to go in and save their children. And here's the thing. If you're not going to do it yourself, at least let the parents go in. But no, they kept the parents from going in as well. It's utterly disgusting to me. So everyone says, what are you going to do when you defund the police? Well, they're not fucking doing anything anyway. They're standing around. And then we had reports of police officers that went in and saved their own kids and then got the kids out and didn't actually go and do anything for the active shooter situation. Handcuffing parents. Handcuffs. I gotta say, if that was my kid in there, police officers are going down and I don't give a shit. If you're not going to do anything, get the fuck out of the way. You're not doing anything. You're not serving or protecting. You're doing nothing. 40% of the city budget in Uvalde goes to the police force. They have a SWAT team. It's a very, very small community. They have a SWAT team. None of that mattered. Still 21 people, 19 children dead. Because the police sat on their hands. So I don't want to hear any more of this macho shit about the police. I'm done. Yeah, maybe they're good to call in after your house has been robbed and they're going to give it to a detective and everything else. But we see here, what good are they? Where were all the good guys with guns that I hear so much about in Texas? Good guys with guns. Where the fuck were they? Sitting on their hands. That's what they were doing. Changes must be made. If none of those police officers want to do their job, then they shouldn't have that job anymore. I hear this constantly when I talk about the NRA, the terrorist organization that is the NRA. And people like to come back at me like, well, I hope there's somebody with a gun to save you when shit goes down. Really? Like I said a little while ago, I probably trust the dude walking around on the street right now that's carrying a gun. Trust him to help me more than the police right now. After seeing what happened down there in Uvalde. I don't want to be force-fed the bullshit anymore. Change has to happen. From the police, from the NRA, and our politicians. And in fact, we had this NRA convention down there in Houston days after 19 children and 2 teachers were killed. Days later. And then, of course, musicians were being applauded because there was a few musicians that were supposed to perform at this convention. They said, oh, no, after the events of this week, I can no longer participate in the NRA convention. It's like, bitch, you already had committed to playing the convention. They were already a terrorist organization. They already manipulate politicians with their donations. This is an organization that's in the minority, that goes against the majority of what people in this country want. The majority of the citizens of the United States of America want stricter gun laws. The majority of the citizens of the United States of America want universal background checks. Close to the majority of the citizens of the United States of America want a ban on things like AR-15s. Yet we are held hostage by a literal terrorist organization known as the NRA. And then politicians like the Orange Menace, Ted Cruz, they go and they talk to these organizations. They support the NRA. They do nothing to combat gun violence in this country. What do? They point fingers at places like Chicago. There's a difference between Chicago and Uvalde, Texas. Yes, maybe there's violence up there. It's not AR-15s. It's not school children. There's no reason for anybody to own one of those guns. There's no reason for everyday citizens to just be walking around with giant guns on their hips. You want to go hunting? That's fine. And let me be clear right now, for all those fucking gun nuts out there that love their murder machines, I don't want to take away your guns. The majority of Americans don't want to take away your guns. You want a handgun for protection? Have a handgun for protection. You want a shotgun in your house for protection? Have a shotgun in your house for protection. You want a hunting rifle for hunting? Have a hunting rifle for hunting. That's where it stops. You don't need things like an AR-15. You don't need hundreds of rounds of ammo. How many deer are you trying to fucking kill? And if you think you need something like that to protect your house and your family, you need to ask yourself what you have done to require that to protect your house and family. I'm fucking sick of it. And it's never going to end. We're in this endless cycle. Every goddamn time we say, never again, never again, hashtag gun reform now. And it doesn't change. And these asshole politicians like Ted Cruz and Abbott, the governor of Texas, don't even get me started on Bobo. Jesus fucking Christ. We talked about the grooming. She came out and she was spouting off of mental health and LGBTQ. And it's like, no, bitch. It's you posing for Christmas card photos with your 5-year-old holding a gigantic gun, a murder machine. That's the fucking problem. Not the LGBTQ community, not mental illness. Now, mental illness, yes, that's a problem. Is it leading to gun violence? No. It's very much the minority. What's leading to gun violence is the ability of an 18-year-old to walk into a store on his 18th birthday and buy a gun that nobody should have. Hundreds of rounds. There's no excuse for that. And then we deal with these fucking federal judges. California made it illegal for somebody under 21 to purchase one of these things because we couldn't completely ban the AR-15s. A federal judge struck it down and said it's against the Second Amendment. When the Second Amendment was written, we didn't have guns like that. You want to have the Second Amendment that was written by the slave-owning founding fathers of this country? Here's a musket and a little tiny ball, and I'm going to show you how to pack that fucking ball in there with gunpowder. Tired of the Second Amendment. Tired of the NRA. Tired of the gun nuts in this country. Stop. There's no reason for it whatsoever. These are terrorists spreading propaganda. And I'm not going to back down on that. I've never backed down on that. And send me your fucking hate mail. I don't care anymore. You want to be on the right side of history? Get on the right side of fucking history. Look at the rest of the goddamn world. This doesn't happen anywhere else. The majority of people want change. We have 50 senators sitting there and a stupid terrorist organization known as the NRA that control it. It has to stop. Now, fortunately, we do have people who are taking a stand. Lots of people are taking a stand. And one of those people who I want to give a good on you to is Gabe Kapler. He is the manager of the San Francisco Giants in Major League Baseball. Like a day or two after the shooting in Uvalde, he came out and said that he does not feel good about the direction the country is going in. So he will not kneel, but he will not come out of the locker room or clubhouse, as it's called in baseball, for the national anthem until he feels better about the direction of the country. We need more of this, more voices like his. And they're out there. But again, the majority want these things. We just have to keep pushing for it. And hopefully one day we will get it. Hopefully one day I will not be terrified taking my daughter to school. I wouldn't bet money on it, but all we can do is continue to fight these terrorist organizations. And I'll continue to do it while yelling at a wall, and I encourage everyone out there to make your voice heard. That's all we can do. And thank God for California. Jesus Christ. I'm never setting foot in Texas until they fix the women's rights issues and the gun issues. Just not doing it. Just not doing it. I don't care. I got no reason to go there. No, I'm good. Not setting foot there. All right, let's talk about a little bit of entertainment news. I apologize for all the F-bombs, but just can't do it anymore. I can't. We're just being held hostage. And it's not acceptable. All right, I do want to talk about a couple good things. United Defiance. I mentioned I was going to, last episode I mentioned I was going to. Well, this past Friday I was out at Characters in Pomona. I love that venue. It's so small. You can't have big shows there, but it's such a great venue. You get a cheap beer, but tasty beer, not shitty beer. Cheap beer. Got the bands on the patio there. I was disappointed Taco Punks wasn't out there this time around, but you get the tacos out there once in a while. It's just great fun. And I will say this was a great show to see. I'd actually not seen any of these three bands play before. So United Defiance was headlining, courtesy of Gonzo Presents. He puts on a lot of the shows out there at Characters, along with Lost Issue and Not a Chance. Now, I've heard United Defiance. I've got a sticker on the wall there. I'm familiar with their music, hadn't seen them live. I would consider Clinton a friend through social media and stuff. Finally got to meet him in person. He is also a big proponent of Punk Rock Saves Lives, as we are here at Go Tell It to the Wall, of course. So it was nice meeting him. But I was familiar with their music. I was not familiar with Not a Chance or Lost Issue. Not a Chance was wonderfully funky. It had a little hardcore feel with a sousaphone. Amazing. And then Lost Issue was also quite a bit of fun. They put on a great show. And then leading into United Defiance, who really killed it on Friday night. All of them were great performers. I would highly recommend checking all of them out. Highly recommend checking out United Defiance. Picked up a shirt on Friday. We'll have that on one of the podcasts. So check that out. Definitely. All right. The Ellen Show is done. Yeah. Just had her last episode this past week. I've never been an Ellen Show watcher. I had coworkers that used to go to her the Christmas thing. They'd get TVs and shit because I worked in Burbank, not far from where Ellen was filmed, and but I never was a fan of the show. I saw clips here and there, but it really was just an epic fall from grace. And I guess we've seen these. It's funny because I was thinking about it. I was like, I can't think of a more epic fall, and I was like, well, Cosby. I mean, that was pretty. But man, it felt like everybody loved Ellen at one time, and then now nobody likes Ellen. It's kind of amazing. But she's completely done. Her show's completely done. I don't know what's coming next, but I'm sure she has enough money where if I was her and had that much heat on me, I'd probably just kind of be like, all right, I'm just gonna stay home for a while. But we'll see what happens there. Rest in peace to Ray Liotta. Lost him this week. Fantastic actor, obviously. Good fellow. That's the thing. I was just to be in two legendary movies that are never going anywhere. And that would be Goodfellas, of course, which is just timeless. That's never going to fade into obscurity, as well as Field of Dreams. Yeah, Ray Liotta, Field of Dreams, legendary movie. Now, of course, he was in tons and tons and tons of other movies, but those were the two that definitely popped to mind. And unfortunately, we lost a great actor, a little too young. He was only 67, so rest in peace, Ray Liotta. Hail fellow, well met. As a lot of people like to say. And the last thing I'm going to leave you with before we wrap up episode 79, you got 2 days left. Today is May 29th, and there are 31 days in May. So you got 2 days left to pick up the May Bassists Against Racists t-shirt, and that would be available on Chaos merch if you're in the United States, or on T-Mom merch if you're in Europe. And of course, that features art from the uber-talented Paul Smith of Zombie Teeth Clothing, and it is the brainchild of the uber-talented Lynn Lee of Bad Cop, Bad Cop. And of course, the May artist on the Basis Against Racist t-shirt is Jason Black from Hot Water Music. It's actually great. I mean, they're all great designs. I'll be honest. Sorry, Paul. I like some designs better than others, and I don't think it's even necessarily on Paul. It's when you have a good picture to kind of work with, and then some of them just come off more dynamic. I mean, you look at the Gabby one. I mean, the Gabby, Lynn, Bungle. They're all great designs, but this is a particularly awesome design. So make sure you got 2 days left to pick it up. Pick it up by by Tuesday. It's pre-order, so make sure you do that. And then next episode, we'll talk about the new Basis Against Racists design. And I mentioned it midway through the episode, but I got my Sidewalk Project shirt on today for episode 79. You should definitely go on, follow Sidewalk Project on all the socials. Go on there, support Sidewalk Project. They do so many great things as far as mental health and harm reduction and helping houseless people around not only Southern California, but other cities around the country. So make sure you go out and support Sidewalk Project. And you got to love that awesome art. Again, also from Paul Smith of Zombie Teeth Clothing. All right, one more time, I want to apologize for all those F-bombs. I don't think it's going to be stopping anytime soon. We're going to follow this and hopefully hopefully make a push toward gun reform, for the love of God. And don't get it twisted. The NRA is a terrorist organization and need to be stopped at this point. So all that being said, we should be back next week. Same wall place, same wall time with episode 80. We're going to have some scheduling conflicts coming up, but I think episode 80 should be happening next week. I'll let everyone know. Make sure you're following us on Facebook.com/GoTellItToTheWall. Also, YouTube.com/GoTellItToTheWall. And my own personal Instagram, which is at SoCalSean, SoCalSean. And don't forget our website, SeanO'RourkeLive.com. And make sure you support us through some merch or some Patreon if you have the means to do so, or you can just keep listening. If you don't want to spend money supporting us, tell your friends, share the things. The podcast is available everywhere. Shout out to Podomatic, who we host our podcast on, but you can find it everywhere on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that good stuff. So wherever you get your podcasts, you're going to be able to find Go Tell It to the Wall. And make sure you share and tell your friends. It's free to do that. Help us out. Just getting the word out there is the most important thing. That's what's helped us grow over the past 5-6 years. Geez, almost 6 years. Wait, yeah, almost 6 years. All right, on that note, this has been episode 79 of Common Sense Sundays with Go Tell It to the Wall, hosted by me, your absolute favorite podcast host, the one and only Sean O'Rourke. And remember, Wall fans, Common Sensors podcast consumers, until next time, no matter what you do, no matter who you're with, no matter where you go, and no matter why you are doing it, always, always use common sense. And don't forget, fuck the NRA.